Alright people, I'm gonna try a new concept out today. Just try and talk while I'm on my ride. But today, one of the things I've been thinking about is the power of being too dumb to say no. And the reason I say that, there's a concept that I heard, shit, I can't remember who the guest was, but it was from a podcast that Dave Sparks did a while back. It's the guy that owns Rockwell Watches. I can't remember his name off the top of my head right now, but he was joking about how he had a wrestling coach who would always put him up against the hardest guys, and he always thought that the whole time he thought that it was because, you know, he must be really good. Well, it came down to it, and one day the coach is giving him a pep talk and just going, well, after he'd done something super stupid, and the coach basically was like, yeah, I love this guy because he's the worst wrestler here. He's probably the weakest, and he's my favorite because, and the guy's like, oh, thinking, oh yeah, he's gonna really talk me up now. And he goes, because he's the dumbest guy. He's so dumb. And he sits there and just is like, what? He's like, he shouldn't think he can beat these people. And yet he always is confident enough to say, yeah, I think I can. And I heard that story, and I've really tried to take that to heart over the years. And especially, you know, personally in my business, with what I do, there's times when I'll have a client come to me and be like, hey, can we build this? And I'll just say, yeah. I have no idea how I'm gonna do it sometimes, but I joke with them and I'm like, well, dumb enough to say yes, because a lot of other companies and shops won't, but I'm smart enough to figure out how to do it. And I think that's the key. And I think that's what he's trying to explain in that story. Sorry for the heavy breathing, but we're doing this. So the whole point was, when you're faced with what seem like impossible odds, what seem like something that shouldn't work, the key is sometimes just to say yes. Be dumb enough to say, yeah, I think I can do that, but smart enough to then figure it out. So I think that's where a lot of us, we sell ourselves short because we're too dang smart right at the beginning. Sometimes it's better to realize, hey, I can be stupid and still be successful. In fact, I can be way more successful than that really smart guy over there, because while he might be smart, he isn't going to figure it out because he's too smart. Where dumb guy like me, someone can come to me and be like, hey, can you do this? And I'm like, I have no idea in my mind, and I just go, yeah, let me figure it out. And I think there's a lot of power in that. There's a lot of learning in that. Being willing to have that coachableness, have that ability to problem solve. And especially in business, in sports, and all those different things, you need to be able to do that. So, that being said, sometimes it's important to really stretch yourself and be dumb enough to say, sure, I think I can do that. Even then, you have no freaking idea. And sometimes that will bless you more than just about anything. Woo! Well, that was kind of fun, actually. But yeah, I think looking back at the last just over 2 years since I started my fabrication company, and I think about the things that I've been able to accomplish, the projects I've built, some of which you look at and I go, man, I really had no business doing that. But the people trusted me and were like, all right, yeah, you got this, you know? And crazy thing is, we did. We figured it out. So when you're faced with just impossible odds or things that look like they shouldn't work, you just have to remember that, like, hey, you're actually a lot more capable than you even realize. Like, people are so capable, and it just comes down to being willing to accept that you don't know everything, but that you can learn anything. Like, I look at how things have changed in the past few years, and I look at, like, it's like an example of, like, my biking. I've gone through ups and downs, had a gnarly back and neck injury. I've had tons of issues with my right Achilles, but I've been too stupid to just accept defeat. And I think partially that's because I was too stupid to accept defeat when I had injuries earlier in my life. Had a bunch of times when I was younger, in my late teens and 20s, early 20s, dislocated my shoulders. Had two surgeries I had a surgery on both of my shoulders, and then had to get a third surgery on my right shoulder because I was training a horse and thought I had it in good shape, and horse decided to take off on me and throw me into a gate. Busted my shoulder up, broke my ribs, and after that things weren't very good for a long time. Developed a lot of nerve issues in my hands, but I never wanted to give up because it's like me, a huge part of my identity has always been the athletics, skateboarding, snowboarding, biking now, and I've always tried to do everything I can to stay strong, to stay in shape. And sometimes I've failed, sometimes I've done better than others, but recently I've really been able to hone things in, especially after that last injury, of just understanding my body, finding better balance in my strength, in my abilities, and really focusing and honing in on those weaknesses. It's like my shoulders were still an issue, my back was an issue, and being able to hone those things in and focus on them harder has been a huge change. Like, so good. So that's, like, for me, that's the main thing, is just honestly always being willing to learn, willing to admit that you don't know, but that you can probably figure it out. And so it's like, at this point, like, after that injury, I've still been able to progress. I've still been able to do lines that 3 or 4 years ago I didn't even know were even possible to ride, let alone that they were even there. Going out to different zones and finding new features and harder things and building my own lines. That has been something that's been so rewarding. So yeah, just the achievements that I've seen these past few years and changes in my life have been huge. Like even this feature, for example, a couple weeks ago I actually hit it, and I was always super scared of it for a lot of years, but it's pretty chill. And I think that's what happens with a lot of things, is your perspective shifts. So being willing to push your boundaries and push your limits is huge in everything in life. Whether it's pushing your boundaries personally, like with your physical limits or your physical abilities, pushing your boundaries spiritually. How close can you get to God? How close can you get to your family, to your spouse, to your kids? Like, how can you push your limits of developing new relationships? Like, in these past few years, just having opportunities to meet so many cool people through biking, through business, through church, through people my wife has introduced me to. Like, all of that compounds so much into really becoming a better life. So it's just, I think that's the thing. Being dumb enough, to me, always comes down to being dumb enough to push your limit. Being dumb enough to always overestimate your capability, in a sense. Not in a dangerous way, but in a good way, you know? And being dumb enough to just always be doing hard things. Being dumb enough to ask questions and not be embarrassed about it. Because, like, let's be real. The people with the answers, they've probably been to the same place as you. So there's really no worry in the grand scheme of things. So when we're faced with challenges, when we're faced with questions, when we're faced with needing to learn something new, why wouldn't we be willing to admit our stupidity and just be better? Like, that's legitimately, I think, the best thing that we can do for ourselves at the end of the day. Whew, is that stuff. Just be willing and being able to trust your ability and trust that you don't have to be the smartest person in the room. You just have to be in the room and be willing to ask the stupid questions. So, thanks for coming to my TED Talk today. Hope y'all find some new ways to be just dumb idiots. Love you. Bye.